occasionally he made a turn, but otherwise, and Hokusai is really just turning them round and trying for the performance with you. A story I regularly tell them is about visiting Miles Davis in the 80s and seeing Miles Davis play at the Royal Festival Hall. And Miles Davis played the whole concert like this. Occasionally he made a turn, but otherwise, and his other musicians were there. And I thought, that's very strange. Is he very shy? And I realized he wasn't presenting his music.
Yes, we're on
streaming.
Hello, welcome to the New Athens. I'm Lorenzo Messer. This is Dan Kalupski. We've been listening to Mark Rylance talking about
stuff.
Miles Davis, facing away from the audience. So musicians, pop musicians, normally face the audience and kind of sell the performance. Whereas conductors, they face away from the audience and they're just doing something different, right? They're in the zone.
Yeah.
And so it was odd to see Miles Davis playing the trumpet. You talk about other people's ideas.
So do we come up with original ideas? I mean, we must, but is like I have a Hegelian concept of originality. So like a lot of ideas you think are yours, and then you realize, oh shit, some bastard's already written it down. So I'm like, are there our ideas, or do we get similar concepts and we synthesize them exactly the same way the original guy did? And all the kind of the reviewers and the critics are like, oh, this is the next. She's like completely in the school of these guys. Absolute tribute, very obvious. I must have read these guys and is paying respect to them. And then she was like, no, not at all. It's just, and so it's like a black swan thing.
Yeah, I mean,
are these ideas could they have come into her consciousness through different mediums, through like television?
What I would suggest
is
hi guys,
Oliver Nelk.
If I said, hey Lorenzo, what's the answer to this? Right?
Yes.
Don't say the answer. And then if I then said to Dan, hey Dan, what's the answer to this? Right? And then
4.
And what was the answer, Dan?
4.
But you got there first. But basically, it's just an equation. You had the same information. You came to the same conclusion.
The question was 2 plus 2.
So is it the way we think? So is it addition?
Oliver is the Jungian collective. You're the zeitgeist. You're whispering in our ear.
Is because of the way we think. Because the original guy who came up with that idea changed the thinking of the world, and then we all kind of like grew up with that instruction. So like because you said 2 plus 2, but that's addition. So we all, but it could be a philosophical kind of.
There's a lot of anticipated retrospection on Freud. People think that having sex with your mother and killing your father, that's kind of old hat. But that's only because it's got so far into the fabric of the culture that you don't need to read Freud to get the idea for it to be around.
Yeah,
I've always heard of these.
He's a very good example because he's so popularized.
But then when you read it, it does come alive fresh, and you do see things that you didn't get from kind of the meme version of it.
Because it's all the stuff is there, right? Yeah, I get that with other stuff.
I would say ideas come from just like the result of just like solving logical problems that are out there. It's like, an idea is just the solution to some logic that you've been presented with.
Yeah.
And so, if 2 people are presented with the same logic, they'll probably come to the same conclusion if they've got similarly wired brains.
Can I have a thought experiment on your in your book?
Yeah, sure.
Because I need to visualize this.
You go for that.
So we all know that 10, right? It's like a really nice way to think in divisibles of 10, right?
Yeah, base 10.
Because 10 is the first double-digit number.
Yeah.
But what if we had, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But 10 is the first double-digit number.
Yes.
But what if it was 12? So what if you have 1, 2, 3, 4,
well, then you'd be
5,
counting in the
6,
hexadecimal.
7, 8, 9,
hexadecimal.
But you have like a different one. Like you use this kind of thing for 10, and this kind of thing for 11, and this is 12.
Yeah. So
they're all double, and they're all single.
What we can see here is I don't know if we can catch that, can we?
But most people think like,
Well,
oh, it has to be
yeah.
10 because it's
Well, no,
double
no.
digit. It's,
So
it's
you've
so
no, no,
got
rational.
like
that's called
more
base
single
12,
digit
that is.
figures.
That's called base
Yeah, so
12.
that's
Yeah.
but that's
And if
base
you
12. But what's Dan saying is different about it. Is it's
It's
base
because we
12
also-
with figuration of base 12.
But because
Because
it's a,
we could do
yeah.
base 12 looking at 11 and 12 and have the consciousness that, oh, they're
they're
it's
double
really
digits.
base
It's
10
one.
written
because
down.
because one, it starts again with 1, right? It's just that like thing that like
Okay.
people growing up with that, and 10 is the first double
Yeah,
digit
well, 10,
number.
because
They-
it's 10
they-
fingers. But you know, everything else, you know, 12
The
is
metric
the best
system,
well, yeah. So Fibonacci numbers go 1, 2, 3, 6, 12, and it's like
1,
Fibonacci.
2, 3, 5, 8.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
But 12 is a much more useful
13,
number because it's
because
divisible by more numbers. And if you think about like
Times as well.
shillings and pence, old
Oh, yeah, it's
imperial.
Perfect number of
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that's
imperial stuff was
Victorians
all
was 24 and so on.
non-decimal.
That's why I use 12 as an example. But say we use 13 or 15, it doesn't matter. But I think it's because we grow up seeing that 10
Yeah,
is the
so-
first double digit number. We're like, right, everything is rationally divided by 10 because that's where we start again with 1 and add a 0 to it.
Yeah, so
12 semitones an octave.
So what Dan is saying is that because
If
of
we
the
have more
notation,
single digits, yeah.
because of the double digit notation, your brain resets to base 10, even when
Right,
you're
yeah.
faking base 12, because you didn't invent some other characters for 10 and 11, which are
Yeah.
single digits. And so this comes back to what Roland Barthes said when he was kind of shut out by the French academy, and then they finally let him in just before he got run over by a laundry truck. He died under the wheels of a laundry truck. Funny enough, he was a theorist of the sort of structuralism of fashion. But anyway, and then he died in a little bit. It's like slight irony. But anyway, so he had a speech when he accepted the chair of like semiotic studies in the French, and he said that language is a game where, for instance, his best example is pronouns. So I am you, and he is him,
So
and
you
we
are
are
him.
they.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of dance of the pronouns. So we don't address ourselves by like serial numbers. Even our names are kind of common words which we share between people. So he said that the empathy in language is encoded certainly in sort of in English and French, languages like that, with pronouns. So I can be a you, and you can be a me, and you can be a he, and so on. And so we dance around these kind of chairs. We can all occupy various chairs because you're a he to me, or you're a you to me, and you know that you know that we can all swap. And so
Do we really see the same green, for example?
it makes
Because I
us,
say this is green, you all agree with me this is green, but it may be subjective to me. I see it as what you perhaps see this, you know.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you can definitely not get behind the experience, but what the language is saying is that we have this platform where, according to Barth, we can all understand the fact that we are alike, and it emphasizes the fact that we're alike, and so it bridges the gap. And so, like Dan's single digit 10 and 11, it's one of those codings which we don't get to see around the back of what's behind the curtain, because we've grown up with that. We kind of don't have the option, and so yeah, that was kind of intriguing. But I wanted to ask you guys, do you think we are subject to a papist plot? Now, this is something that came up this week. So the Pope has just written a letter saying we should all be governed by the UN. But I was looking at
We should all be governed.
the Pope is now advocating that we're all governed by the UN. And in his newest encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, which is like a 45,000 word document, I haven't gone through it all yet, but we will just for you. But no, we're all subject to papist plot. So we're looking at the US Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett, who's going to be nominated in a few days to the Supreme Court in the States, is a Catholic, and I think that will mean that there are 7 out of 9 judges on the Supreme Court, justices on the Supreme Court, will be Catholics if she gets elected.
9
And
out of 7.
7 out of 9.
So right.
2 more. The next
Talk
2
about
as well.
decimal places.
So 7 out of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court will be Catholic. And I didn't know, but there was a few weeks ago, there was the speculation that Boris had taken a trip to Italy. And then number 10 said, no, he wasn't taking a trip to Italy.
Oh yeah.
He was baptizing his kid. And where was he baptizing his kid? He was baptizing his kid in Westminster Cathedral, which is a Catholic church, with Eric Gill's sculptures on the front over on Victoria Street. It's the Greek Orthodox looking one that's actually a Catholic.
Gill's the peculiar man who got all sorts of peculiar stuff.
Yes, he was the.
He was like the original Jimmy Savile.
Yes,
of the BBC.
Yeah, but also he was quite good at making fonts.
Gill Sans fonts.
Yes,
and did the statue outside the BBC.
Yes, he also did Broadcasting House. Funnily enough, very good fonts. Very good families. Very good
and
fonts.
Sainsbury's. He did the Sainsbury's font, I think.
Really?
I've got it's something to do with him and Sainsbury's.
No, it was Johnston was based on Eric Gil Sans, which was the London Underground font.
I always thought it was a Greek church.
No, that's the Catholic Cathedral in London. So Boris Johnson christened his kid.
Pretty hideous.
It's a Catholic cathedral.
Is it like a Victorian kind of?
Yeah, it's like Victorian Greeky Orthodox
mosque kind of.
So we have a Catholic Supreme Court. Joe Biden, who's running for president, is also a Catholic. Tony Blair became a Catholic as soon as he left, like a few days after he left Downing Street. He converted, so he was a papist.
Tony Blair was Catholic, did he?
No, he converted into Catholicism.
Oh, right.
On like a couple of days after he resigned as prime minister, which means that he didn't have a like Damascene conversion on the way out of number 10. Like he was a Catholic. Before that, his wife is a Catholic.
Right.
So are all these papists we think that there are all these problems with Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and China?
I would say
is the real problem Catholics?
I would say sort of a high church kind of papism is a better frame of mind than the crazy sort of what separatists are. Protestant. What's the Protestant thing?
Puritan.
The puritanical kind of mindset of the Western world at the moment is a bit much. In terms, the puritanical kind of herd thing. I mean, what's the sort of social dynamics of the Catholic faith? If Protestantism is puritanical, essentially, what is Catholicism? How would you describe it?
Burning people at the stake.
I would say enthusiasm.
Yeah. It's a highly evangelical religion. So it wanted to essentially Catholicism is Jesus's followers saying, okay, we quite like the Roman Empire, and we'd quite like to not be just the underdog religion of being like thrown to the lions by the Romans, but we like to have Rome. And so how do we then go from swords to plowshares? How do we go from turn the other cheek, don't do any violence, pacifism, into like legions and chaplains and a state that's also a church which has temporal power and can kill people when actually we're all about not killing people.
Well, I'll characteristically not agree. Well, not disagree, but just say that I think that the thing about Catholicism, like with Jesus's followers, is that you're applying Jesus's doctrines, but it's into a like you kind of do have the point like a state framework. So you have a pagan empire, and it's great because what they did with Christianity is that you have one God, which you don't see, but you have a lot of like saints, which basically replace the pagan gods. Okay. So instead of having Zeus, Poseidon, and Aphrodite, you have Saint Luke, Saint George, Saint Nicholas.
So instead of praying to the pantheon, you can pray to the saints.
And that tradition is that paganist aspect of the Orthodox and Catholic faith still exists, because you get a candle and you put it in front of icon, well, in the Orthodox faith, of a particular saint. And you have the same, St. Mark's Church or something in the Catholic faith, which is like a temple to.
So you think it's like streamlining the tax code,
basically,
so that instead of tithing to all these different pantheon gods and going and doing your obeisance and sacrificing a bull over here, burning some food over there, you centralize the tax off.
And that's the thing, is that you still have idol worship within Catholicism, or Orthodoxy, and that idol is a particular saint. Yeah, like Saint Mark in Venice that fucking kidnapped his body from Alexandria, and the whole cult of the city revolves around Saint Mark, and Saint Peter in Rome, and Saint George in this country. But what this country, or the Protestant countries, did is they got rid of that idol worshipping thing, which is the Puritanist aspect. So saints don't have such a strong kind of thing. There's a patron saint to this country. There's,
he's actually from Georgia.
Yeah, well, he's the patron saint of Georgia.
And
as well.
Philip was saying that St. Andrew wasn't Scottish; he was actually Greek.
Of course he wasn't Scottish. But,
and so then you start seeing the sort of nationalism come about, and then it's kind of broken down.
Well,
but lots of interfaith mixing.
But I mean, they are. But the point is, it's not an idol worship. It's just a more of a founding national myth. But you don't have, churches to different saints dedicated to the idol of a particular saint in Protestant countries, right?
No, I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, but
like it's Westminster Cathedral, it's Westminster Abbey. It's not St. Peter's Basilica.
Oh, it is. It's St. Mary's at Westminster. There is
but is it dominated by her cult?
Well, I mean, let's say St. George's Hangover Square. Shout out to Roddy the Rector, always a good friend. Pops the champagne.
But you know what I mean?
That nice Mayfair. Nice Mayfair. Come back down on Sunday mornings. Lots of champagne.
But that cult and idol worshipping is not like the is not so present. So I think that's where Puritanism comes from, is that you have a direct connection with God. And in Catholicism, there's a whole hierarchy of there's a tradition of idol worshipping, which they incorporated the pagan things into Christianity. And there's also that medium of you and the bishop.
You know what brings all religions together? Pedophilia. That's something we can all get behind. And so my grandmother actually gave me a scoop the other day along those lines. It wasn't like a recent scoop, but it's something that's been forgotten. So in the 50s, there was a great scandal in Greece, where my family, from my father's side, are from. A foreign photojournalist got into Mount Athos, the mountaintop monastery. In fact, there's a whole series of these monasteries on cliff tops in Greece, in the north east of the country. They have a peninsula. On the mountaintops, they have these monasteries. There's no women allowed, no chickens or sheep allowed. There's nothing female allowed. Only males can go up in a basket up to the top of the mountain. And they got their own law. They're independent of the Greek government. They've got all the gold from all the pilgrims. And so what happened was a foreign photojournalist came in and was snuck into the monastery. And what did he publish in the paper in Athens? He published a daisy chain of buggery in a circle. So all the priests were dancing naked, and there was a circle of them all fucking one another. And there was a massive scandal in Greece.
It was a photograph.
Yeah, photographs, because they didn't have like video.
Photograph of Greek policemen bumming each other.
Greek priests.
Greek priests bumming each other at the top of the
in a giant circle all the way around.
A real photograph.
Yeah. So she saw it in the paper in the 50s in Athens. Right. Before she left to come to London, so it must have been sort of early 50s. And massive scandal, because of course, I mean, what did Henry VIII say? If the monks cannot stay in their beds, we will turn them all out into the cold. So he knew, Thomas Cromwell knew, and got rid of the monasteries in this country. And as you say, the cultic worship of these idols. Are we getting it back now in Britain and America after all these years with this Catholic cabal that we're seeing coming to power? Is that the real story here?
Was Jimmy Savile Catholic?
I don't know. I think he was.
I
And
think
he worshipped
Is the
Beelzebub.
Conservative Party Catholic?
No, it's traditionally quite anti-Catholic, actually.
But just a bit Catholic.
There are some sort of high church, high Torah, Anglo-Catholics, I suppose.
Yeah, like.
But Rees-Mogg, head of the House of Parliament. So many. Is it? And then we get on to so we've got Amy Coney Barrett, we've got Tony Blair, we've got seems Boris Johnson, christened a Catholic, but then confirmed Anglican at Eton.
Oh, right.
According to our research, so then we have Fratelli Tutti, which came out today. It's the Pope's new encyclical, 45,000 words, saying Pope Francis calls for giving United Nations organization real teeth. Fraternity, says the summary, fraternity has been encouraged not only in words but in deeds made tangible in a better kind of politics, which is not subordinated to financial interests but to serving the common good, able to place the dignity of every human being at the center and assure work to everyone so that each one can develop his or her own abilities. That sounds a lot like Marx, from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs. A politics which, removed from populism, is able to find solutions to what attacks fundamental human rights and which aims to definitively eliminate hunger and trafficking, which is of course something that the church has always done, and hunger which it could solve with all of its gold.
St. Mark's.
Yes. So what do we see?
Churches, huh?
Oh yeah.
So what do we
Have
see?
you ever seen City of Churches?
No,
It's
the
the
City of Churches.
Guido from Staten Island. He walks around different Catholic churches of New York. It's quite funny.
Okay, cool. Let's have a look. So what do we understand from the Pope saying that we need to all be governed by the UN? Is that where we're really going? I mean, so we have no, is that the secret? That actually the Catholics have a long view, like China has like a long view, like 5,000-year plan, where they're seeding out
1,000 5-year plans later.
Yeah. If you want to get good at something, start 5,000 years ago. So the Chinese, the elders, had this long-term plan that they had this century where they were that they were subject to the British Empire and the Americans, and then suddenly the Japanese, and then suddenly they burst out, and now this is their millennium. This is the Chinese millennium, the third millennium. Although it's like their 8th or something. I don't on the long Chinese calendar. I said they have a long.
Keep going. Keep that going.
And so we got the Catholics doing the same thing. They seeded out these different kind of power nodes in what we thought was secularizing or secular republics, or even a Protestant monarchy, which is like built to be a rebellion in the 16th century against papism. Have we now seen that we've been colonized underneath? All of this talk of big tech in China is actually perhaps a distraction from the real plot that's
I can't believe we didn't figure this out before.
that's coming.
This is like rap.
No, but it gives the whole atmosphere. Like, you should be excited about this conspiracy theory.
Yes.
It's like a trailer.
So then we see what else did we find here?
The Chinese are coming drop.
5,000-year plan, people.
And the Catholics are out to stop.
Do we have a third way? Is there a third way? That's our question. Are we stuck between, on the one hand, China, and on the other hand, Cardinal Bergoglio?
Oh yeah.
With his. I was in the Vatican, and a friend of mine is in the Cappella Sistina, who will remain nameless, and gave me a sort of backstage tour of what goes on in the Vatican. I saw some interesting areas, and we did a tour of the church and so on. He got me tickets to come down to the mass in St Peter's Basilica, and in the square, the piazza was full of, on Sunday morning, was full of plastic chairs lined up, full of country bumpkins in like baseball caps and socks and sandals and cargo shorts and t-shirts. I was the only one who was like dressed appropriately for a mass with the Pope. Then on the raised on the dais were it was the mass for the disabled, or I can't remember, it was a mass for the cripples. I can't remember what the term was, but they had the Pope laying on hands these very ill people who were being pushed up in like beds on hospital beds to be laid on the hands. Oh, that's what Emre said. Put the microphone in the shot. That was a tip we got earlier. Is this a telescope?
Can we delve into your personal psychology?
No, telescope. No. Okay.
Point it at us.
There we go. Don't turn it over like that. There we go. We get it in shot. Yeah, that's the question.
So this is dressing. This is messaging. This is
yeah. No. So we were
so it's
told
not about the content. It's about delivery. It's
by
not
our
the message.
CTO.
It's the medium.
Yeah,
We've turned into
the massage.
the massage.
So I forgot. Yeah, the medium is the massage. So can we get it in shot? So yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan moved to Spotify, and already he's being censored. So I think it's time
To move to Spotify?
No, not to move to Spotify. Here we go. So that's kind of in shot. There we go. Over there. There we go. So, sorry. So yeah, Joe Rogan's already been censored by Spotify. They're not taking the Alex Jones podcast, like the millions, like tens of millions of people seeing these podcasts, over onto the Spotify platform. They've not taken other various controversial people he's had on the show. So podcasting is now open season again. We thought it was kind of settled, where you'd have this platform where you could get out from underneath, the problems of censorship. But it turns out that it's just out of the frying pan into the fire. So we've got to create our own infrastructure, really. Alex Jones is the model. Syndication on radio. Although we were looking last week at how
Ofcom.
How Ofcom is.
Well, Ofcom are fucking the devil's fucking organisation, aren't they? Because
Yes.
if you are regulated by Ofcom, you are not allowed to broadcast information that is contrary to the government's view on how to deal with COVID-19.
Yes.
They're legislating against that. That is
They're legislating against science, against the idea of the scientific method of improving on.
Yeah, what's Popper? What's Karl Popper?
Falsifiability.
Falsifiability. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
it's not Popper science.
It's not Popper science. That's good.
It's not Popper science. So if you look at the science that you see from people like Matt Handencock and the two goons from the science officers, not very witty,
No.
and what's the Valence? Yes,
not very valiant.
Yeah, unvaliant.
Not witty or valiant.
Neither witty nor
goons.
valiant. So if you look at those two and others in across the mainstream media, say follow the science. As you rightly pointed out from Karl Popper, falsify. They're not actually advocating falsifiable hypotheses. They're not interested in the scientific method or in terms of how they're just interested in obedience. And they're using science to mean obedience to authority.
Yeah.
And so I think we should rename Sage the Druids Club. I think that actually, if you replace science and scientists with druids and prognostications, or what would you call it, sacrifices, or where so this is what the graph says. This is what the goat innards say. it's that same kind of prognostication. And instead of calling them scientists, you call them the Druids Council. The Druids Council says.
Because, I mean, if you were an Oxbridge graduate and you wanted to earn, why would you go into politics? I mean, I don't know why any of the cabinet have gone into politics. Is it because they couldn't find a job anywhere else? Is that why?
Maybe they already have money. I don't know.
But then basically, how can they have such little? I mean, I'd hate to